Welcome, everybody, to this month's Lunch and Learn featuring Terry Bean and myself. This month, we fell on this topic. We've had a lot of people reaching out to us talking about how they're stressed, how they're burned out, how they're just feeling a little bit behind the eight ball in so many different ways. And Terry and I talked about it, decided, hey, why don't we do a discussion on the impact of this and how does it come about and what happens when we're feeling in that space? And most importantly, what the heck can we do to get out of that feeling? So I'm going to start by asking a question. Terry, what is it like? Have you experienced burnout or have you experienced that sort of moment where you're just like dissatisfied with everything or feeling overwhelmed with that stress? And how does that show up for you?
It's happened a couple of times. Burnout's not really my thing. Stress isn't really my thing, just because I'm so self-aware of the things I need to do to take care of me. Like before there was this whole self-care kick, I was doing self-care because like I knew internally that I can't give my best if I don't have my best to give. So I made that a focus a long time ago. But the stressful stuff that happens for me, like most of us, usually revolves around money or people not doing what they said they would do
Mm.
when they said they would do it. And so I have found myself catatonic in a fetal position on the floor in my bedroom, right? Like, just make it go away. Um, One time in the last decade. And I'll tell you what, man, it sucked. I was low energy. I felt like everything around me was moving and I was moving in slow motion
Mm.
and like you were trapped in jello kind of deal. And it was a heavy, heavy, heavy feeling. And as a presenter, as a guy that speaks for part of my living, I did what any presenter might do. I wrote myself a love note in the form of a presentation that I immediately delivered and delivered numerous times. And I'm sure we'll drop some tidbits from that along the way, but it became like a warrior's cry, right? Like a battle cry for me.
Okay.
And it really helped me get centered and focused on what matters. And that has been a theme over the last 8 years, man, figuring out what matters most. And I feel like most of us haven't done the inventory in our own lives to understand what to prioritize and what to let go. Because if we're not doing that, we spend a lot of time mired in some BS and letting the things that are really important slide by. And all of a sudden, now that impact is double because not only are you feeling like you're suffering or struggling, you're not taking care of the things that are most important to you. So that it just compounds upon itself.
Yep. It
So
becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy in so many ways too. So I'm going to ask the audience, what does burnout show up for you? How do you experience it? What is some of the things that maybe keep you up at night, or how does that show up? I'll share a little bit about how I kind of stumbled into the burnout area was right around 2020. One of our clients who has a lot of space in the healthcare area. Um, they said, "Hey, Jay, can you put something together on burnout?" And of course, my brain was just like, "Yeah, sure." So I started to research, started to really, really dig in to better understanding, looked at the diagnostic manuals, looked at the World Health Organization, looked at a ton of research. And this is, just at the very beginning of COVID. There's been a lot of even better research that's coming out since then. But in starting to look at this and starting to better understand what it was, is burnout and just like kind of negative emotions. So think about negative emotions. A lot of people try to push it away or try to, tamp it down or anything else like that. But two of the big things that I understood about burnout, and this is maybe something I really want the audience to take this away. It's not that you're today I'm burned out and tomorrow I'm not. It's not like an on and off switch. I really want you to think about burnout as a continuum. And we're always on that journey, either towards feeling some burnout or away from or getting away from burnout. And that was one of the big learnings that I had because a lot of people just kind of felt like it was an on and off switch. For me, what I realized for my burnout is I would, and I did this almost my entire life, my entire career. I would go so hard for like 6 weeks straight. I mean, just cranking out, pedal to the metal, no stop, no rest, no self care. And then for like 2 days, I could do that for about 6 weeks. And in 2 days, I was just done. I was depleted, had no energy. I see a whole bunch of comments in here. A lot of the things I experienced, no energy, brain fog, not turning off, sometimes just like inability to kind of like refocus or rethink or anything else until I literally put myself into sort of like a quarantine for 2 days so I could bounce back. And I realized that what I was doing was I was literally ramping and just going straight up the hill as hard as I could, as hard as I could, running out of breath, tumbling back down the hill, and then doing it again for the next 6 weeks rather than having a nice steady pace or figuring out how can I prioritize what's important, what's necessary, and kind of keep that going. I'm seeing a lot of comments here in the chat too, some big ones that I'm seeing: resentment, some physical exhaustion, indecisiveness, brain fog, irritability. Yeah.
Grouchy.
So,
Yeah, like I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to deal with me. I don't want to deal with the things on my list. Procrastination. There's a lot of things that are really systemic of this. Um, I'm gonna say something that most of us aren't gonna like, and but I feel like the quicker we get to acceptance on this fact, the better off we are. The majority of the burnout and stress that we experience is brought on by who? I won't even say it. I'll let you figure out the answer, people. Who
and
who
not
who makes that happen?
and not me, like I didn't bring it on you, hopefully, but I'm sure that I do for some people. But yes, it is self-induced, and a lot of times it's so important that we bring that up, Terry, because in when we're feeling that burnout, a lot of times we look to the external and say all of these things are happening to us or all of these things are happening around us. And in reality, we don't get to control all of those different pieces. We really only have control over ourselves. We're the masters of our own fate. We have the ability to set boundaries, but we don't. We have the ability to prioritize what's important, but we don't. We have the ability to make a decision that could improve or could cause us to go further down that burnout hole, but we don't because we do sometimes, like in that moment, feel powerless to stop it. So let me start there, Terry. When you're coaching people or when you're engaging with somebody, because I know that you work with a lot of executives who probably are experiencing burnout on a daily basis, if not, on an hourly basis. What are some of the things that you help them to do, or what are maybe some different ways that you help them sort of take a step back and think about what to consider in terms of their burnout?
You know what? It's funny that we're having this conversation right now because I had a coaching client that I'm supposed to be meeting at 3 o'clock today who sent me a text message yesterday that said, I'm taking the week off, man. I need a mental reset. And you taught me that I have to trust my gut. You taught me that I have to take care of myself. You taught me that I have to listen to my inner being. And my inner being is screaming, take a break. And with the exception of the 100 people who care, 100 businesses who care event Wednesday morning, I'm not doing a damn thing. And that includes I'm canceling my session with you. Is that okay? Yes, yes, and 1,000,000% yes, right? So listen, there are signs that we all experience, and y'all listed a bunch of them, right? Whether it's irritability or grouchy or procrastination or the feeling of lack of energy or exhausted, those things are all red flags. And when they start piling up, right? When you got two or three or 12 of them flying around your head, it's not time to put the pedal to the metal, people. We've been sold a bill of goods about this hustle and grind culture. And what's crazy about the hustle and grind culture is while that is important and is effective for some people, that does not work for the vast majority of us. And even for those of us that it does work for, it works for us for 6 weeks until we pummel ourselves into the ground and need a 2 day hard reset. I'm not naming any names, people. I'm pointing any fingers at Jay. I'm not doing that, but it's an example that there are some of us that that's never going to work for. And the other thing, and this is what drives me the most nuts on this particular topic, it talked about it being self-induced, but we confuse busy with productive so often,
Yes.
so often that again, I go back to let's realize what matters and what's important and focus on that. I help my clients take a look at their to-do list, right? And take it from here to here. And we do that by saying, this is what you have to do now. This is what you have to do next. And then this is what you have to do never, right? Stop writing things on the list after you've done them for the satisfaction of crossing them off, right? That doesn't relieve stress, that adds to it. How many people out there do exactly what I said? They have a to-do list, they add things to it after it's already done and go, yeah,
Yep.
failing
Nope.
it,
I've done
right?
that.
Right.
Guilty. Guilty. I like the achievement aspect. That's the fire element in me. You know,
Yes.
and it's funny that you say that because, we've all been told, all right, get enough sleep, eat well, take time for self-care, and those are all we know those, but for some reason we still don't do them, right? Just because you
Mhm.
know something doesn't mean that you're actually going to act on it. But I will say, and like this morning, I got up and one of my morning routines, part of my morning routine is I take an ice bath. So I get into the cold water, sit there for 5 minutes, freeze, absolutely awful. And then I get out and I go into the sauna as best as I can. I notice that on the days that I do that, my energy's higher, my mood is better. I'm more resilient to anything that's coming at me or anything else like that. And if I miss for a couple of days, it ultimately ends up sort of like it compounds, just like you said, and it starts to create those. So yes, self-care. But here is I see somebody say no to this. It's an act of mental resilience. Let me tell you, if I can handle that, I can handle most things. Let me talk just a moment about some of the science of dissatisfaction and burnout. And I think that this is something, if we think about dissatisfaction, it's essentially one of our needs not being fulfilled. And this is really where it ties into behavioral elements. We all have the drive to acquire. We want resources. We want things. We want to buy things. We want to achieve them. We all have a drive to bond. We want to connect with people. We want to feel connected to other people. We want to feel seen and empathized with. We have the drive to defend, which is our drive for safety. We want to make sure that we're safe, that we can predict what's coming next and manage uncertainty. And then we have the drive to learn, obviously, our air element, that sort of need for learning new experiences, etc. I want you to really think about dissatisfaction. And if you were to lay out those four drives, so for those of you that have taken the assessment, you probably know what your primary element is. Maybe you know what all four of them are if you've done the full assessment, which is awesome. But let's think about dissatisfaction. I would be willing to bet that 99.9% of the times that we're feeling dissatisfied, you can look at the elements and you can identify I'm either dissatisfied because I want something that I don't have, because I'm missing a connection that I feel like I should have, that I'm
First one
not
was fire,
feeling,
that one's water.
yep, that I'm not feeling safe, or that I don't know what's going to happen next. And that uncertainty is bringing some level of dissatisfaction,
Earth.
or that I feel like I'm just stagnant and I'm not learning or growing or developing. I
Sure.
would be willing to bet that you, as an individual, could look at your own personal profile and have a pretty good indication of what your highest element is and whether or not that's associated with some of your dissatisfaction. I know one of the things that I was really, really guilty of is I always wanted what's next. Like even today, and I have to back myself away from this, right? My drive to acquire. Ooh, I want to build my deck. I want to do this. I want this. I want this. I want this car. I want this. I want this. And I wanted all of these different things. And it felt like if I just get that next thing, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be satisfied. And over the course of my time studying neuroscience, that's not how it works. Just when we achieve the next thing or when we get the next thing, we think that we're going to feel satisfied. And then the next thing comes in. It's almost like when you make more money, all of a sudden your bills start to go up and up and up, and it's just never enough. And that's one of the big things with dissatisfaction is no matter what it is that we achieve, if we're not careful or cautious, we just want to go to the next. And we don't savor, we don't appreciate, we're not mindful of the things that we have. Does that make sense, Terry?
I think you absolutely nailed it. And so I because Martha asked, I'm gonna try and repeat what Jay said and tarry it up a little bit, right? So four reasons that we're dissatisfied is they're tied to the elements. For fire, we're often dissatisfied because of something we don't have, something we want, something we're chasing that we haven't reached yet. That's a fire dissatisfaction. For water, the dissatisfaction is we're not connected to the person in a way we want to. We don't have a meaningful relationship or the right group of friends or the right, we're not feeling like we're heard or being responded to and bonding with people in the right way. That's our water thing. Our earthy issue is we don't feel safe. We're not sure where the practicality comes from. We're not living inside of a system or a process, or we're continually being pushed too far outside of our comfort zone, and we just want to get back into it. And lastly, and certainly firstly and most importantly, says the air guy, we're not feeling pushed. We're not feeling like we're growing. We're not feeling like we're learning. That's the issue with air. Did I do that justice?
Absolutely. So this is one to kind of take a look, and I'm going to take on Stuart's question. And by the way, use the Q&A if you do have questions. We want to answer those questions. Put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A, and we will make sure that we cover it. But Stuart has a great question. Is there a greater rate of burnout from an imbalance or uncertainty from the primary element or lowest element? Um, Couple of things that I'll comment on that. In our studies and in our research, one of the things that we found is water elements tend to have higher rates of burnout than some of the other elements. And part of what we think the reason for that is, at least from the interviews that we ended up conducting, is sometimes waters have a very difficult time drawing a boundary or saying no. And they end up taking on the emotions and they end up taking on the work in many cases of other people. So we do know that about the water element. It has a higher propensity for burnout. Now, me personally, one of the things that I kind of extrapolated from that is one of the biggest ways that we feel burned out is when we feel unappreciated, unvalued, or unseen. And that really goes across any kind of element. And I will say that as a very, very high fire element, that is a very quick way for me to feel like, forget it. I don't feel like dealing with this anymore. It's not even being looked at, or it's not even being considered, or I'm not even being evaluated. So we know that that drive to bond is a powerful indicator. I'm going to give you a tactic that you can literally do today that we have demonstrated across probably about 600 nurses, had an immediate impact on reducing burnout that's related exactly to that drive to bond. One of the things that I would say is when we have a high element in that sort of unbalanced space, right? When we're unbalanced in a particular area, and I don't just mean on your profile, but I mean like when you're feeling unbalanced in an area. So my high fire, if I'm not winning, if I'm not achieving, if I'm not doing things, it does put me at a higher propensity for burnout. For my lowest element, my earth element, my drive to defend, if I am constantly focused and doing work in that space and not adhering to my other elements, I'm going to burn out even faster. So, to your question specifically, Stuart, I think it's both. And I think it's really about finding balance amongst all of them. Remember, we got to fulfill all four of those drives as humans. We all have all four. It just tug on us a little bit differently. So that would be my answer to that. Anything to add to that, Terry?
Your point about being stuck in working in our lowest element, it hit me like you just reached across the screen and slapped me upside the head because, like, so true, man. And it's such a slugfest for me to do systems and process oriented stuff. So the things we talked about earlier, where the dissatisfaction comes from, is it's related to each of those drives. That's one thing. And when I'm not learning, I get bored, and my wife and I were just having this conversation. She's a little bored right now. And it's because she's mastered the tasks that are ahead of her. And she's ready for that next stage of growth. And so I think we really need to be mindful of that. We also need to be really mindful of the language we use and assign to things, right? Are you bored, or are you just not challenged? Because if I'm not challenged, I feel like I can change that. I can pick up a book, I can listen to an audio, I could go for a run, I could meditate, I could go for a paddleboard, I could do 87 different things to challenge myself. But beating boredom, phew, that sounds like work, right? So
Yep.
nuance
So
matters.
well, I mentioned one tactic. So, audience, I really want you to take this tactic because this is one that we have used in the past, like I said, in the healthcare space that had one of the fastest, most immediate impacts. And I'm gonna walk through this for 2 seconds because I have a couple of caveats that come along with it. One way to essentially start moving us down a pathway. Remember, burnout's a continuum. So it's not like we're just going to do one thing and get out of that burnout. But one of the fastest ways to do this that we have found in our research is a very simple thing. What I want you to do is I want you to open up your phone, go to your favorites, go to your contact list, and I want you to find somebody that you haven't connected with in a few weeks. Maybe you haven't talked to them, maybe you haven't called. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be an old work colleague, it could be a mentor, somebody who you haven't connected with for a little bit of time. Now, here's the caveat. Don't make it a past girlfriend or past boyfriend or something like that. That's not what the purpose of this is, and that's actually a recipe for disaster. So that's a caveat. Find somebody that's important to you that you haven't spoke with in a while. Pick up the phone, call them. And I know that's hard sometimes because if we haven't talked to them in a while, sometimes we feel guilty or we feel shame or it's like, oh gosh, I've been meaning to make this call. Do it. One of the things that this has is it triggers a part of our brain of oxytocin that ultimately ends up feeling connected or reconnecting with somebody. That is a powerful, powerful antidote to burnout. Because one of the things that's going to happen is when you make that call, and unless it was my grandma, where it's like I called my grandma and she'd be like, "Oh, about time you're calling." After about 5 minutes, the conversation normalizes. And then all of a sudden, you kind of get into this joyful aspect of reconnection. And that reconnection helps us to feel seen, valued, and ultimately learning about other people, asking, "Hey, Terry, I haven't talked in a while, man. What's going on in your world? Tell me what's happening." Also taps into empathy, that you're caring for somebody else, that you're reaching out to check in on them. And that is a huge, huge impact on being able to start moving away for burnout. Taylor in the chat says, I legit just did this yesterday. I was feeling disconnected with my grandmother due to time and haven't spoken with her. Yeah, reset the guilt meter. But I guarantee you, by the end of that phone call, grandma felt great. You probably felt great. And all of a sudden, we get this sort of like burst of the different neurochemicals that will help us sort of go beyond some of that burnout. Because what is burnout? It is a lack of balance in some of those areas. And this is, yeah, exactly. You felt so much productive today than yesterday. Huge impact. And congrats. That is a powerful way to do this. If you can even take 10 minutes a week, 10 minutes a week, that's nothing. Make one phone call, make one connection. I actually have this in my habit share app that I have to make a connection with one of my people at least once a week, 10 minutes, make that phone call. It is a powerful, powerful antidote.
I love that we're talking about burnout. We're using the elements to help guide us. That the number one most frequent response to the assessment, like literally 50% of all people assessed, show up as water with their primary element. That you said the highest percentage of people to experience burnout is water, and then you just gave like the quintessential watery tip to reduce burnout, right? So, when you originally said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" and using the elements, I'm like, "Well, I can't wait to see how this plays out. Let's go." But well done, sir. Bravo.
Well, thank you. Part of it too is, and part of that practice alone, we get stuck in our own microcosm, right? Like when we're feeling stressed or dissatisfied, everything is about us. We internalize, we go so selfish, and that's what our brain's designed to do. It's to protect us. So this is a natural human thing. And then we feel guilty about that selfishness. We feel guilty about that sort of shame. We start asking ourselves, why can't I just get my head out of the clouds? Or why can't I just get past this? And the simple act of reaching out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a little while widens the lens. It actually pulls you out of that sort of like, tunnel vision of my problems, my issues, my world, my dissatisfaction. And it opens up the landscape. And when we step back and open up that landscape, it really does give us a powerful way to kind of see the rest of the world. This is where empathy can be such an important piece, is like when we're sitting there dissatisfied, frustrated, or whatever else, we're really thinking about this person. And who is the one that's creating the burnout for us? This person. So widen the lens, reach out, connect, do something nice for somebody else. And guess what? The concept and power of reciprocity is going to come right back to us. We're going to do something nice for somebody else. We're going to see somebody else. We're going to value somebody else. And in turn, we're going to feel valued, or we're going to be seen as valued.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece, and that reciprocity really, really goes a long way. And you mentioned something earlier about the shame. Instead of scrolling through your phone, save that for week 6 through, 102 of this exercise. But day one, call the person you know you need to call. You already have a list of people you've been avoiding and saying, crap, I got to make time to call this person. And start there, right? And it doesn't have to be you're avoiding it because of nasty reasons. It could be just because you know damn well that that 10-minute call that Jay suggested is instantly 48 minutes. My Aunt Judy, man, ooh, I am not calling that woman. Boy, oh boy, I don't have time to listen to all her crap. I just don't. But I should, right? She's my aunt, man. So don't ask me if I called my Aunt Judy next time. I will say I outsourced that job to my wife, but somebody needs to represent, damn it. But yes, Michael, make today the day.
So,
I like this question that was asked here by Mary. No, am I reading this wrong? Not Mary. Sorry, it was up here, now it's gone. As a caregiver by Taylor. As a
Taylor,
caregiver
yep.
husband. So do you want to take a stab at that? Because I'd rather listen to you answer that.
Sure. So Taylor, one of the things that, and I've actually worked a lot in the disability space, and one of the things that I have found for caregivers, and I will share this with you, and I really haven't said this out loud a lot, but my dad is actually in the late stages of dementia and Alzheimer's, and my sister is also his caregiver, full-time caregiver. I'll take him a couple of times a week. So I've given this advice and then I've literally seen it myself. One of the things with caregivers is their inability to say, this is hard and this sucks sometimes. And bear with me on this. Um, that can be true, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you love your partner, you love your father, you love whoever it is that you're caretaking. But failure to acknowledge sometimes that, hey, this is heavy. This is a very heavy thing, and that's okay. It's a heaviness that I'm willing to carry. It's a heaviness that I love the other person, but acknowledging sometimes the difficulty there can be very, very difficult for caregivers. And essentially, what's happening inside of your brain is part of your brain, that sort of back shadow part of your brain is telling you this, and then we suppress that. That happens so often with caregivers. This is true not just of caregiving, too, though. In so many different instances, we may have a particular feeling, we may have a particular idea, and the back part of our brain starts to talk to us, and we don't like that part, or that part feels uncomfortable, or it feels taboo, or anything else, and we just suppress it. And then what ends up happening is our brain gets into literally a small war with itself between these different neurotransmitters. This is a chemical reaction. It's not even necessarily a moral, philosophical, or intellectual discussion. The brain's chemicals are competing with each other in so many different ways. So the first is sometimes just being able to take a step back and say, wow, today's difficult. Sometimes they're difficult days, and that's okay. And I'm going to get through that day, and I'm going to be able to move forward and move ahead. So, what I'm talking about here in specific, if I was to put a label on this, it's going to be mindfulness, and it's going to be acknowledging where we are at in that very moment. This is a very powerful antidote to burnout as well. One of the things that I like to do, and especially if I'm feeling the frustrations, if I'm feeling burned out, if I'm feeling dissatisfaction, is I will take a moment and just sit and I will repeat a couple of things. I have air in my lungs. My heart is beating. I have food in the refrigerator. I have a shelter over my head. And I start thinking about all of the things that make me safe or that make me feel loved. I could even say, I have a partner who loves me. I have friends who truly care about me, that want me to be successful, that want me to succeed. Yeah, sure. Maybe I have some challenges or maybe I have some things to overcome, but really kind of taking that step back and being mindful about what we have rather than just pushing away what's frustrating us, but really intentionally bringing that to the forefront of our thoughts can be a powerful way for us to sort of self-regulate rather than necessarily reaching out to somebody else in that drive to bond. What you're doing is you're managing that drive to defend, that uncertainty, you're managing that I want more. You're managing that with being mindful with what we have and what we're capable of sort of providing to ourselves. I hope that makes some sense.
Stoic philosopher, and I can't remember if it was Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus who first said this a couple of thousand years, but the object is to see things as they are, not better than they are and not worse than they are, right? But just to see things as they are. And that to me is like the core principle of mindfulness. And I love what you said. I love the affirmations and I wouldn't even go so far as to call those particularly positive affirmations. Those are just like truth, right? And we forget the listen, if you have the ability to watch Jay and I and listen to us right now, you're so much higher up on the food chain of population on this planet. Like there's so much to be grateful for. And in having that exercise I've got a handful of different notebooks that the back page of is just filled with things I'm grateful for. And I'll go back and I'll read that
Huge.
list. I'll go back and I'll add to that list. I'll go back and just love that list. And it's such a great like just reset. Jay talked about going for 6 weeks and then hitting that 2 days. If you want something to reset on the things that fill your heart, your body, your soul, your mind with gratitude, because like that's the most powerful force that we have in this universe, right? And so often, to Jay's earlier point, we spend so much time thinking about what we lack. It's not how we get more. We got to spend time being grateful for the things we have.
It's
So just
huge.
a
It
important.
And it's really interesting. And I'll kind of relate this back to my sister as a caregiver too. One of the things, when I've seen her get really frustrated, when I've seen her get, upset, either she was unable to fulfill, adequately, or at least in her mind, adequately fulfill one of my dad's needs at that moment, and she kind of gets down on herself. One of the things that I will kind of do and step into that space is just be like, what have you accomplished this week? And I'll kind of refocus her brain. What has he smiled at? What has he brought joy to? What has he done this? And now we can do this for ourselves. But sometimes, like when we're in the muck, it can be really, really difficult, which is part of the reason why I coach her on these things. But that's something that now, like when we're on the phone at different points in times, I'll be like, Carly, you know what I'm going to ask you here. So what is it? What are your wins? What are your wins for the week? And for those of you that have attended my coaching, it's one of the things I ask at the beginning. What is your wins for the week? And it's really about focusing on, hey, there are some good things happening, or there's positive things happen. When we look for that gratitude, again, it shifts the neurochemicals in our brain. It starts making us acknowledge what we have, where we are at. So in taking that sort of that to that next level, we can be our own best friend. I know that sounds really strange or it sounds selfish, but we really should be our own best friend in many cases. Taylor, I want you to think about it this way too. And for anybody out there in that type of a situation or anything else, what would you say to your friend that was experiencing that same type of scenario? This is a powerful thing for us to do for ourselves. You'd say, hey, look at what you did accomplish. Look at how things are going. Look at all of the wins that you do have. That back shadow voice doesn't want us to be thinking like that. However, this is a powerful way for us to do it. One other comment that I'm going to make on this, and this is one that I think maybe Terry actually next month, I've had a couple of requests for how can we set effective boundaries? How can we have those conversations that we can create boundaries for ourselves? I think that's a topic that we should definitely delve into. To just kind of give a quick one on this is ask yourself, is giving myself 15 minutes to, a day to really focus on mindfulness or to focus on meditation or to do some self-care, is giving myself 15 minutes a day too much to ask? And you should be telling yourself absolutely not, because you'd be telling your best friend, take 30 minutes, take an hour, take as much as you need to be able to show up in the way that you want to. So in that regard, give yourself permission to say, this is my time. This is my energy. This is what I'm going to focus on because I am a priority and I have a value that I need to be able to show up in my best self. But if we don't take the time to actually engage that for ourselves, we're going to be missing a lot.
So earlier I talked about being catatonic and in the fetal position and writing a presentation. The presentation was called Success is in Your Face. And FACE was an acronym: focus, awareness, communication, execution. Those were the four things that I knew that if I was excelling at across those four disciplines, success is inevitable. But my focus is all over the place, right? My awareness is sometimes good, not as good. My communication can always improve, like all of ours, and execution is like worshipped. I say all this because focus is so dang important, right? When I work with clients, one of the first things I do is help them identify true north so we can scrap all the rest of the crap on their list. But there are four primary laws of focus. Number one, what we focus on, we find. Number two, what we focus on grows. Number three, what we focus on seems real. And number four, ultimately, what we focus on, we become. And so when we talk about is we're looking at all these different things, man, what we need to do is narrow that focus because ultimately we see what we're looking for. You want proof that one political party is bad? There's plenty of evidence. You want proof that that same political party is great? plenty of evidence for that too, right?
It's like
So
buying a car, Terry. When you buy that car, you didn't see that car anywhere, and then all of a sudden, that car is everywhere on the road. It's such a great point on that focus question.
the reticular activating system is a powerful thing, man. I am a fan. I am a fan of programming or reprogramming as it ends up being our subconscious mind to be looking for the things that matter. And that's why scrapping all the rest of that crap becomes so important.
Yeah. I want to address, Carl had put in the chat, reaching out as a small fire when you're supposed to be always managing, fixing, and fighting is extremely difficult. This is where, and it's a great point, Carl, because sometimes it's like, all right, taking a step back, and I'm going to kind of parlay this a little bit into what Leslie said. And Leslie said, being a caregiver for her mother with dementia, and I empathize with you, Leslie, and obviously a number of other things, kind of working through Medicare, finding a good place, and being a caregiver for her husband. There's a lot going on. So, yeah, much hugs to you. I agree with that. When we're thinking about taking time for ourselves, this is where I want to shift a little bit of mindset. A lot of people, when we think about self-care, it's like, I need a weekend retreat. And the reality is sure, it'd be great if we could just take a vacation to, the Caribbean, maybe not right this minute, but take a vacation to the Caribbean and shut off, tune out, or whatever else. That all sounds lovely, but here's the reality for most of us. We don't always have that much time to prioritize a week away. Here is what I want you to consider in terms of self-care. It doesn't have to be long, it could be 5 minutes. Let me give you a couple of examples of this. If I have a phone call to make, I will take a walk while doing that phone call. Just being outside, being out looking at the trees while I'm on that phone call is sometimes just 5, 10 minutes where I can be walking around in circles, getting some movement, getting some blood flow. That's actually activating different parts of your brain to tell yourself, hey, I'm outside, I'm walking, I'm breathing. It gives you a different perspective. Again, it's about widening that lens. Take some of your meetings while walking if you possibly can. That sort of exercise and movement can be a really powerful antidote. Other things that you could be doing, like here's a couple of quick examples. I know this sounds really funny, but like when I'm driving and I've got a 2 hour drive in the car, I find myself, I will literally like almost like feel like I'm exercising while I'm driving. I might just tighten up my muscles for a second and then let them loose. Tighten up my muscles for a second and then let them loose. Something so simple is actually activating different parts of your neural networks that are maybe not getting activated. This doesn't, so what I'm saying here and sort of the answer to this is start with something small, 5 minutes, even if it's just 5 minutes to take a walk, even if it's 5 minutes instead of, and I'm not taking anything away from Netflix or social media or anything else like that. If you look at your phone, look at how much time you spend on any of those apps, take one of those apps out of play and use that specific amount of time for self-care. And when I say self-care, I mean real self-care, mindfulness, gratitude, empathy, journaling, meditation, whatever your piece is. If you do that one simple thing, your life will improve. Your mood will improve. Your brain will react differently than the way that it's reacting now. Because right now, what it is it's all of those different cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, that constant state of stress. Cutting out or carving out time, whatever that might look like. We might think that we get joy from social media. And let me tell you, yeah, you get a dopaminergic hit every time that you're kind of scrolling or scrolling or scrolling. But the long-term impact of that, it's not self-care. It's not something that's actually contributing to your overall well-being. Breaking that addiction and even focusing that amount of time into whatever it is that you can do, whether, like I said, meditation, eating healthier, preparing your meals in advance, doing whatever that looks like to give yourself a little of that reprieve is such a powerful way for us to overcome some of that sort of, I don't have time or this isn't my priority. That's another thing too, real quick, and I'm going to turn it to Terry on that. Instead of saying, I don't have time, tell yourself, I'm not making this my priority. And when we start thinking about our own health, well-being, wellness, mental health, and we say, I'm not making this a priority rather than I don't have time for this, it's going to very quickly kick you in the butt to shift your mindset. I need to make this a priority. I only have so many days on this earth. I only have so many breaths that I get to take, and I deserve to be happy. And to be happy, we need to be able to invest a little of that energy into ourselves in order to overcome some of these challenges.
You couldn't tee that up any better, homie. I think in frameworks, right? And so one of the frameworks I live by is the five pillars of a life well lived. And they are wellness or health across five areas. Those five areas are relationships. The number one relationship that you need to make sure is healthy is the one you have with you. And then it expands to friends, family, coworkers, community, whatever, right? Number two is spiritual. I don't care what you call God. It doesn't matter to me if it's the universe or an actual the picture in your mind, right? But having something where you acknowledge there's a thing bigger than us is important. Number three is mental wellness and mental health. Boy, that's all we got. Number four is physical. We got to be doing something for this temple on a regular basis. And number five is financial. I wish that wasn't on the list, but we live in a world where financial well-being is important. Period. End of story. Those five things. Your job is to find something that in a half hour or 20 minutes or 3 hours, whatever kind of time you can allot a few times a week, hits at least four of those five things at once. People joke, why are you paddleboarding in October, Terry Bean? Well, because I can. And more importantly, I'm out on that paddleboard. I'm thinking about financial issues. I'm connecting with spirit. I'm working on my mental wellness. I'm working on my physical wellness. And I'm also thinking about the people that I need to connect with when I get back to my phone. So I'm checking all five of those boxes every time, whether it's 25 minutes, a quick run, or whether it's an hour and a half with the perfect float, it's all good. And I've never not felt rejuvenated afterward. So think about what you can do that's going to tick off those boxes. And maybe those aren't the right five for you, right? Financial, spiritual, mental, physical, and relationship wellness, but they're pretty universal. I would think they're close. And so tick those boxes off. You'll be amazed at how much better you feel. That's when Jay's like, well, when you deal with stress, I'm like, I crush it before it even has a chance to show up in my world, man. Because I'm like so harmoniously balanced across those five things. Oh, and by the way, the goal is to have all of them firing at optimal level. And I will tell you that the 8 minutes, all five of them were firing at optimal levels,
Mm,
like the best 8 minutes of my entire life.
that's awesome. You know, so we're nearing the end of our hour, and obviously we could talk a lot more, but I do want to make sure. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that we can answer for you in these last couple of minutes? One other tactic that I want to share, and it's something that I think that I've used virtually my whole life, and I didn't really realize the power of it until I started to realize, wow, I have a lot of resilience. And this is something that I call micro resilience building. Okay. You heard me say earlier, getting into the cold tub. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to go buy a cold tub and sit in a cold tub, but what is our brain constantly thinks about how to make us feel comfortable. This is why, like, if you want to go and work out, the part of your brain is just like, oh, but I just don't have time, and maybe not right now, and so on and so forth. And it makes excuses. Our brain doesn't like pain. We move away from pain. So think about all the different conveniences that we have in this world. We have everything that is like when you're driving to a grocery store, we try to look for that parking spot that's closest for us so that way we can get there. Or we may try to reduce the amount of weight in our backpack so we're not carrying as much weight with us. This is where I'm going to challenge you. And it's such a powerful exercise that you can do. Now, I'm not saying if you're in the middle of burnout, I'm not saying add hardness to your life. But this is something that I like to do kind of at different points in times is challenge myself, is make myself feel uncomfortable for no reason. Here's an example of it. Simple micro resiliences. Blast yourself with some cold water. Not only are your endorphins going to go up, your serotonin's going to kind of level out, stabilize, but you're also going to have an enhanced mood. It's hard because it's uncomfortable, but here's the reality. You can die just as easily from overheating as you can from freezing. It's just another sensation. And if we kind of condition ourselves to say, yeah, this sucks. It's temporary. It's going to go away. In a minute, I'm going to turn on the warm water. I can survive this. I am fine. I am safe. Add a add a 5 pound weight to your backpack. Carry that with you when you're going around. When you take it out, it feels a heck of a lot lighter. Now, this is kind of the concept is when we start challenging ourselves, park at the very, very back of the parking lot and get the extra steps in on the way to the store or wherever it might be. These little forms of uncomforts or discomforts are something that can actually train our brain to say, "Hey, yep, it's uncomfortable, but what am I doing? Is it really hurting me? Is it really doing this?" Again, these are micro level, but one of the things that they can have is having an impact on our resilience. So when we're in those moments where we think, why am I doing this? Because it's convenient. Like, for example, if you want to do something environmentally nice, stop buying bottles of water and fill up a carry to go with you bottle of water. Okay. Why do we have those little convenient things? Because we can just grab and go and it makes it so much easier. But what does the other thing do? We have to plan. We have to put it together. We have to pour it ourselves. We have to do these. These small things can actually have a huge impact on us saying, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, or yeah, this is a little extra energy or a little extra effort, but I'm going to survive it. And then remind yourself and reward yourself for being able to overcome some of those things. That's going to trigger another set of neurochemicals that's going to empower you to take on bigger challenges and to take on bigger challenges.
Recognize and acknowledge small wins. Stack them. That's how we build momentum. And if you want to
Absolutely.
accomplish anything, you need Big Mo on your bench. I love that, man. That was such a great monologue syndrome. You got me monologuing. Love it.
So, audience, I'm going to ask you what lands for you? What are you going to commit to today? What is something that you're going to walk away from here? Is it going to be making a phone call? Is it going to be adding micro resiliences? Is it going to be refocusing, like Terry talked about? Is it going to be looking at your life in those 5 quadrants? What is something that you're walking away with today that you're going to commit to helping yourself manage this dissatisfaction, this sort of stress, this burnout that we're experiencing? So I'm seeing some of those come in. So go ahead and add those to that. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. Terry and I are going to send a resource to all of you that are here today. One of the things that we have is sort of a burnout checklist. And this is something for you to take a look at and give yourself a score. There's instructions on the sheet. And if it is something that you're saying, hey, I'm really in this space, I need some help getting out, reach out to us. Reach out to Terry. Terry, tell him you already put it into the chat on LinkedIn. He's Try Bean. Reach out to us. Ask for help. This is a powerful antidote too, because sometimes just asking for help or finding a resource can be a game changer for how we operate or navigate going forward. So I'm seeing a whole bunch of really, really cool stuff here.
Stop adding to my list, man. I just kind of want to reach out and high five Lisa. Good for you. Just,
I love it.
right?
Yeah,
They
sharing notes,
cut through
making
that
some
shit with a
calls.
machete.
Yeah, recognize what's going well. So there's a cool book called The Resilience Project, and he talks about GEM principles, GEM, gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. Okay. One of the things that he talks about is every single night, and this is something that I've been practicing with my partner every single night, 3 pieces of gratitude. What are 3 things I'm happy for from the day, 3 things that I'm celebrating, 3 things that meant something to me, and looking through my day, going back on it and really getting in my mind how grateful I was because, dinner was made, or how grateful I was that when I walked outside, the front had been raked or something silly like that, but it's a win and it's something I can be super, super grateful for, and it can have a huge impact. So that's GEM principles: gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. You can check out that book if you want to. No, I don't get any rights from that, but it is a cool thing. Looking at prioritizing. What else do you see in here, Terry?
I love some of these things. Connecting with friends and family, reading instead of scrolling, taking a half hour for myself to go outside and walk. Listen, here's what I know for sure as a very low earth person. Anytime I'm tasked with something I don't want to do, I convince myself to spend 10 minutes doing it. Just start. It's amazing how quickly that time will expand. And next thing you know, you'll have built a new habit. Get yourself an accountability partner. Jay mentioned the app Habit Share. Find someone to partner with on that. That'll help you stay true to you. We're a lot more likely to let ourselves down than somebody else. I don't understand that, but that's who we are as people. You get that accountability partner, you're gonna feel like you're kind of held to it. And sometimes just that feeling helps.
Love it, Terry. And audience, thank you for joining us on this month's Lunch and Learn. Obviously, it's a big topic. I hope that you're able to take some tactics and some ideas away, maybe a little bit better understanding of what it is that's creating those instances of dissatisfaction or burnout or stress, and being able to think about it and manage it, because you matter and we see you, we value you, and we appreciate you for being here with us. And Terry, any last words that you want to say before we close up?
I want to let them know how they might be able to get the recording because I've seen a couple of people ask for that.
Awesome. We will get it done, produced, and up. And I'm going to try to get that up as soon as possible this week to get it out there. If you want to go back and look at anything else, or even share it with somebody that maybe needs some advice or needs some counseling to help them get beyond that burnout, you can always reach out to Terry and myself, but we'll get that right away. Next month, what do you say about boundary setting and sort of kind of continuing a little bit of this discussion in that space, Terry? What do you think?
I think that's an incredible idea, right? Because let's just build from here. This is a good foundational piece. And yeah, now we gotta build those walls, man.
Love it.
Don't let people
So
take your peace, people.
that's right.
That's
All
it.
right. Have a great month and weeks ahead, and days and hours and times, friends. Will keep us to our 1 hour exactly. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month in our Lunch and Learn live. So take care, everybody, and be well.